How's it going? Welcome to the Trades and Grades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Noah Wright. Alongside me is Caleb Nemi, and we are back at it with the second part of round two, 2023 rookie mock draft. If you didn't see the first part of round two, we went through the 201 through the 206. And so if you haven't seen that, click on this link up here in the top corner. And then we did a whole nother round one. So if you haven't seen any of that, then it's best to go watch that as well. So I'll put another link up here for you guys, and you go ahead and click on that. Go watch round one, finish it up, go right into round two, and this will be the end of the super flex. So this is now a super flex of a rookie mock, but we've had a lot of fun with these, and it's only going to get better as time goes on. We'll come back to these in a couple months, when it's probably March or April or whatever, and we have nothing else to do because we have no fantasy football, and all we want to do is draft, and we got to wait until May. We're going to come back here, look at these, and we're going to have, we'll make even better videos with more information after we've watched more film. We'll have closer ADP and all that good stuff. So without further ado, we're going to go with the 207. Caleb Nemi, what you got?
The 207, I'm going with my boy Zach Charbonnet, however you want to say his last name. The man, the myth, the legend. Poor guy. The fall from grace for the Dynasty community. If we would have been talking June, July, this man would have been being mocked somewhere in the Superflex range of 108 to 112. And now we're sitting here at the 207, and he's still on the board. So what went wrong with Zach, however you say his last name, from UCLA? 195 attempts, 1,359 yards, 14 touchdowns. So you're like, okay, not bad. 6'1", 220. So he's got the size. He's got 29 BMI. So we're like very excited about him. Plus he's 21 years old. So he's going to be 22 when the draft happens. We're like, okay, we like that age. A lot of things that are going in his favor. The problem that's right now happening, he has a very low scouting grade. We're looking at probably going to be a late third, early fourth round pick. And based on what we've been saying, Noah talked about this last episode, the difference between a third round drafted NFL running back and a fourth round NFL drafted running back for fantasy purposes, night and day. It's weird that literally maybe two picks could change the perception of what you are as running back, but that is the case. And so, especially with the depth that's happening, with all the free agents that are moving around, I think Zach's probably going to kind of be like a fallen soldier for the running back community. But if you're someone like me that has collected second round pick after second round pick, this is the kind of guy you want to throw your dart at, knowing the talent that he has, knowing that, hey, he has the talent to be a first round, not like a first round NFL running back, but like a first round dynasty pick. So we're taking the shot. We're shooting high, and we're hoping that our man Zach can just lead us to fantasy glory.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're going to keep, or at least I'm going to keep going back to last year and kind of comparing, because I think that's like the easiest way to be able to tell, like, okay, we've been able to see this year's class. So how do they compare? And I think, to me, he would have been a guy that's probably in right after Kenneth Walker, where he probably would have been like the number 3 guy. And we were kind of going through it and being like, okay, because we thought he was gonna come out last year because he was draft eligible. And I had him on my boards, and I was looking at him, and we had Isaiah Spiller up there, and he was right next to Isaiah Spiller. And with draft capital, we saw Spiller fall, so that was we were able to change our our prospect boards and whatnot. But yeah, I was kind of surprised he went back to school. But he's really, as a senior, he's not that old. He currently is still 21 years old. He'll turn 22 in January. So it's not like he's ancient. He's younger. When he's going to be going in the draft, he's going to be younger than Najee Harris was. Najee's, almost ancient for running backs, and it didn't seem like too many people cared all that much when drafting him because of his production. And, he's from Alabama, so he's got that going for him. But for Charbonnet, he had such a good year last year with over 1,100 yards on the ground. I was like, is there any purpose for him going back? Maybe, I guess he just got advice where, the draft capital wasn't going to be there for him. So what he does, he goes back and he dominates. He has over 1,300 yards on the ground. on 195 attempts. That's 7 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns, and he's increased his receiving game 37 receptions for 321 yards. So that's a lot of numbers. Basically, is he had a good year last year, and he did even better this year. I think because he's on the West Coast, not a whole lot of people get to watch him. I certainly haven't gotten to watch as much as I would have liked. I got to watch him some, when they played against USC. But he's had so many good games this year, and so I am surprised that he fell this far even on our own, because you almost kind of forget about him because he's not one of those prospects where they came out as a junior and that's what you're looking for. But he's such a solid, to have him at 207. That's just like mind boggling to me that this is probably going to happen in a lot of, your guys' drafts that you're doing, because things could change drastically, but this is what we're looking at right now. I don't feel like we're too far off of what ADP is. And so, yeah, Zach Charbonnet at 207, that's a great pick. I like him quite a bit. There's just so many good running backs in this class. And so leads me to the 208. And again, there's more running backs we could pick, but I think I'm going to go with the guy that's perhaps not somebody that is ready to be in the NFL right now. And here's the thing: perhaps all these players that we're picking, not all of them are going to be eligible. They might stay in college, which is like this time last year, Zach Charbonnet. We thought he was going to the draft. Turns out he was staying back in college. So some of these guys might stay. Just keep that in mind when we're making these picks. But this guy right here is somebody I think has a lot of upside, but a lot of growing to do as well. He's kind of shown that he's got moments where he can be a great quarterback. And then there's times, maybe not so much. But at this late in the draft, I'm going to be kind of picking on upside. In the super flex, quarterback is king. So I'm going to be going with Anthony Richardson out of Florida, quarterback. And he's had, I think, one of the hottest starts to the year in college football. That first couple of games where I was like, okay, like here he is. This is going to be the guy who's going to be the quarterback 3 over Will Levis. I think he's going to be behind Stroud and behind Young, but he's going to be able to move up. And then they kind of fell. Florida started to not do so hot. And then it was kind of like an afterthought. He had some questionable games. So far this year, his completion percentage is 54%. He's got 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. His QBR is 70.7, so that's 36th. It's okay. It's not great. He's just really, he's had games where against South Carolina, he's 11 for 23, 112 yards. Not super ideal. Next game they play against Vanderbilt, 25 of 42 for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. So you know that he has it. And the biggest thing I think with him is his athleticism is through the roof. Most athletic quarterback perhaps in this entire class, if he decides to go, by a mile. And I know there's going to be a team that sees these, attributes that you can't teach at 6'4", 232, and he is so mobile. And I just know that there's going to be a team that goes out there and they're going to see what he has, and they're going to be able to hopefully mold him. You want a team that has good production and good like scouting, and be able to take in a quarterback like him. But there's so much upside to be had. I just hope that some team can tap that potential.
You are speaking just beautifully melodies about Anthony Richardson. I think in an ideal world, if Anthony Richardson was like absolutely balling out, having this like Joe Burrow type season, which based on the first game when he had the highlights, we were expecting, we would be talking about Anthony Richardson as a 110 to 112 type first round Dynasty quarterback. But since that hasn't been happening, and there's reports that he's going to slip in the NFL draft if he comes out due to some of his decision making and maybe questionable throws. And I know a lot of people are he has the arm strength. He's got all the intangibles. We kind of lack some accuracy, but that's okay. we're excited. We're excited. We see the rushing upside. We see the Konami code quarterback that he is. If this guy hits and you get him where we're getting him in the back end of the second round, like good for you. This is
Yeah.
the type of move that would propel your rebuild from being 3 years long to being 2 years long or being 1 year. Like it could change everything if he actually turns into what we think he could turn into. The same thing though was said about Malik Willis. And now Malik Willis in his one game of starting, you did definitely see the fantasy rushing upside. So we can't downplay that yet, but he did fall to the third round. And so if the same thing happens with Anthony Richardson, I think I'm going to be a little bit further off him. But if he goes in the second round, if he comes out, which is still a big if, I'm really excited about Anthony Richardson and the prospect that he is.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think Malik Willis is an interesting case. Both mobile quarterbacks that kind of lacked certain things that a pro-ready quarterback you'd like to see in the passing game. And so he got drafted much later than most expected, slipped in rookie drafts, and probably rightfully so. Well, he hasn't shown his full potential yet, but hopefully Richardson has a better case than Malik Willis did. So, but that at 208, I'm more than happy to get him.
So he was actually going to be my pick. So I'm glad I'm glad you took him and swiped him off of me. And now with the 209,
Yep.
I'm on the board. We're looking and we're like, man, quarterbacks aren't great. And we got a lot of questionable wide receivers on the board. Tight end, if I'm assuming it's even, like, let's just quote unquote say it's tight end premium. I'm not feeling any of these guys. So with my next pick, I am going with Devon Achane, Texas A&M. Now, 5'9", 185. Okay. He's going to be a scat back. Just look at that. He's pointing to himself because he knows he's the fastest guy on the field. Now, if NFL doesn't work out for him, being a track star will work out for him. So him and his family will definitely be taken care of, whatever that might be looking like. He's got a 27.3 BMI. So he is like, I don't feel, even though he is smaller, like we do feel good about his size. He's not going to be a workhorse running back by any means. He's in the 58th percentile for like college dominator rating. So there's just like a few things that I'm a little bit nervous about. But when you're getting into this kind of portion of the draft, we're shooting for upside. And he is a game wrecker with his speed. And so, like, I like to compare, like, when I watch him play, he reminds me, we really haven't seen someone like super fast. So, like, saying Chris Johnson, like, they're totally two separate different running backs. But, like, imagine if Chris Johnson and Darren Sproles had a baby. That's questionably, like, not as good as both of their traits. That would be Devon Achane. And so, I don't know. Like, he's probably going to go in the 4th or 5th round. And that is a little bit nerve-wracking when you're like, well, I could take this like wide receiver that got drafted in like the 3rd round. But I think a lot of like, you got to shoot for upside, and that's what we're doing here. So I don't really have any extra thoughts when you get to this point. It's like, I'm just taking the guy that I'm like, could this guy become a top 10 at his position at one point in his career? And I think Achane has that upside. Do I think he's actually going to like achieve it? I'm not as confident, but at this point, whatever. It's a late round 2nd pick.
Yep. Yeah, man, it's so tough because he's an electric player. I mean, you get him in a special teams, that NFL team, he's going to light it up on punt and kick returns. I think if he gets that opportunity as a running back, it's just going to be such an uphill battle because he's so small. I mean,
So small.
5'8" to 185, that's like almost non-existent. The odds of him being even a top 24 running back ever are extremely slim. And so for fantasy purposes, I don't know what to do with him because it's such an odd instance of somebody being so talented and so athletic, but having so many odds stacked against him. And people will be like, oh, well, you got Austin Eckler, and well, he was an undrafted free agent, and what is that, a one-time, pretty much diamond in the rough, unicorn occurrence. And like we said in the last episode, you just can't be. Now I get it, 2nd round, So you can late second round, you can try and go for upside here, which is kind of what you're going for. But it's just like, man, it's gonna be so hard to pin that down. So I'm not quite sure where I'm at with him. He's not a bad player, but I just don't know what his fantasy outlook holds.
Hopefully you draft somebody, and I have a question to ask you once you do.
Okay. So yeah, we'll I feel like I can't not pick this guy here. At the we got 210 now. And it's solely because of my allegiance to the Fighting Illini, and I live, within close range of the University of Illinois, so I'm a big Illinois fan. This guy's been absolutely ridiculous this year. I mean, just like I can't put into words how excited I am that Illinois has a player that's worth drafting in fantasy football, because they always have offensive linemen. They always have super good defensive players. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the country, if not the best quarterback in Devin Witherspoon this year. But we're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about fantasy football. Chase Brown out of the University of Illinois has been on Heisman watch this year, and it's been so much fun to go and be able to watch him. I've been to almost every single home game. And so while I am biased, he is a guy that I've seen a lot of high up analysts have them in the mid second round so far in their rookie mocks. But he had 1,643. He's the nation's leading rusher in rushing yards. I'm sorry, I can't even talk. I'm just so excited about Chase Brown. And he's got 27 receptions for 240 yards. He can get the receiving game, but he's a workhorse running back if there ever was. 5'11", 205, a little bit on the small side. That is his one knock I'll give him. Yards after contact, I am a little worried about, but he's so elusive and he has great patience. He can see the hole great. He's just an all-around very good running back, and I don't really know what else to say. I love Chase Brown.
So, yes, I love me some Chase Brown too. Shout out to him being like the first actual running back that's going to get drafted since like Rashard Mendenhall. Is that correct?
Testing my knowledge here. I think Keyshawn Vaughn, who's now on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, would be.
But he transferred. That doesn't count.
Well,
okay. Anyway, so how close? So how close for the viewers? So I just picked A-Chain and Brown. They're probably going to be going very close to each other in rookie drafts. Like, how close do you have those two?
Yeah.
And clearly you'd probably lean Brown because you're an Illinois fan, but like taking your bias out of it, like, do you think it's closer or are you still leaning Brown?
Yeah. No, I think like realistically, if I had to give out rankings right now, in like the second round of these running backs we've picked, I'd say probably it's similar to what we've picked. I'd say Tank. And this is, if you guys haven't seen the first part, I mean, at this point, you're kind of too far gone to, like, if you're watching this, you probably have already seen the first one. If not, then like, spoiler, Tank, Kendre Miller, Blake Corum, Zach. I mean, I really feel like we were picking him in a pretty good, way about us. I would put Chase over Devin just because of the difference in body type. I just think that he's way higher success. Way higher chance of success, just because of the fact that he's 5'11", 205. I think he can still put on some LBs, and he's like ridiculously ripped too. Dude's got like a six-pack and just like stunting on everybody. But yeah, I think that is the biggest, like, in terms of athleticism, Akane, or I got to figure out how to pronounce his name, but he is like a freak. But it's just, like I said, uphill battle. I would lean with Brown.
Perfect. And so then am I up? Is it the 211? Is this where
I'm
at? 211 right now. We are going Zay Flowers.
Okay.
Boston College. I don't know. I was doing a Dynasty rookie draft with Kevin Du Bois and a few of those guys.
Yep.
And I forget who it was that drafted Zay Flowers, and like someone made fun of him for it. And like he gave like all this great backing. Now granted, Zay Flowers, he is a fourth year, so senior. But last year he had 44 receptions. This year he burst on the scene with 78 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 12 receiving touchdowns. He's 22, so he's going to be. I think he's going to be 23 by the draft happens. So he's older. He's an older senior. But dude's just super fast. Like if you watch, kind of the same way we were talking about like Josh Downs and how they're just. I think who was the other guy we were talking about that was gliding in this class?
Oh,
Oh,
Jalen Hyatt.
Jalen Hyde. Like same exact thing with Zay Flowers, but he plays for Boston College, so he doesn't get as much nationwide attention. Now he's probably going to go somewhere late third, early fourth. So we're kind of like I like to put him as like that sleeper of like last year was like Kaylee Shakir for me. Like he's kind of in that range where I think he's better than Shakir was, and he's going to get better draft capital. So hopefully he lands in a good spot. Like if he could land on a team like let's say he lands on like the Chargers or like the Packers. We've been saying that for years. Or like the Miami Dolphins, or like some team that where he could land and like find himself like in a wide receiver 3 role. I think he's going to be super exciting to be able to get him in the second round and hope that it like works out for you.
Yeah. No, it's like one of those things where like you need second round, late second round, early third, and it's kind of like trying to figure out, okay, what's the difference between this guy and the next guy? And his production this year, he's been able to increase, like you said, he over 1,000 yards receiving, 12 touchdowns, and he's on Boston College, which not exactly the best football team. By any stretch of the imagination. So he's not having a great quarterback play per se. And so at 5'10", 172, and most looking like a slot type player. But when he gets to the combine, we watch more tape and testing. It'll be interesting to see how he stacks up against the rest. I haven't got to watch very much of him. It's I think it's cool that you bring up that you had that Devi or whatever rookie mock draft, whatever it was, with Kevin Coleman, and those are some really good guys to pick their brains. And I think that is definitely a guy to keep your eye on. Have a flyer there at the end of the second. So I will wrap it up here with the 212 last pick here in the second round. And it's kind of difficult because there's nothing that really stands out to me. I would love to end the second round with Chase Brown, but I don't really know who would have picked before. I kind of just postponing this pick. And so it comes down to like a couple wide receivers because I don't really like many of the quarterbacks left. So the tight ends are kind of suspect. So basically I'm down to a handful of guys. Oh my gosh. I guess we'll go with I don't like this at all. I literally can't even decide.
I know who I would pick.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm gonna go with a bold pick here. I was gonna go with Marvin Mims. I just can't do it because of Denzel. So sorry I'm treating you because of your brother. But I'm gonna go with Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State. Now, I don't feel like he's a player that is extremely well known. And I'll be honest, like I haven't watched a lot of Iowa State football, especially because Brees Hall's gone now. But I'm not sure why I haven't seen this guy like anywhere. 6'3", 205. This dude is a prototypical alpha. And he's had almost 1,200 receiving yards so far with 107 receptions, 6 touchdowns. Last year, he had almost 1,000 receiving yards. The year before that, as I guess a freshman, he had 771 receiving. So every year he's increased. And it's like he's like a perfect alpha X wide receiver. It's what you want. And you get him at the end of the second round. I'm like, why is this guy falling? I haven't seen anything. Evidently, has a notorious ability to drop the football. So in a wide receiver, obviously you don't want a guy who can drop the football. But I personally don't think that drops are indicative. I think that is something that can be fixable. When it comes to wide receivers, it's not a sticky stat, I guess, for lack of better words. But I think that this is a guy that no one really has talked much about, or at least I haven't seen much about. And I'm more than happy to take a shot on him because he's got such good production from Iowa State.
No, he's a reception monster. Just because you drop a lot, you're getting targeted. You're earning those targets. Like you're catching most of them whatever. Like, no, cool. Like, we gave Deontay Johnson like a drop problem, but he was still producing at crazy levels in the NFL. I know we're done, but I'm going to throw 2 more flyers that will probably end up making their way and kick some of these guys that we just talked about out. Raheem Jarrett for Maryland, wide receiver. He's had a really great season. So very underrated. I've seen like a lot of mocks where he's going in the middle of second round Superflex rookie mocks, which is always a little bit interesting because I feel like he's had a down year compared to last year. And then Deuce Vaughn for Kansas State, which I will be cheering very, very hard for Kansas State on Saturday as they play TCU. And so, yeah, I think those are 2 guys that potentially could make their way also into the second round over maybe some of the guys we talked about.
Yep. Marvin Mims, another guy I mentioned. Parker Washington out of Penn State.
I do like Parker Washington.
And then a couple quarterbacks. Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami had at the beginning of the season had a chance. I don't see that happening. We don't have a lot of tight ends. Darnell Washington out of Georgia and Sam Laporta out of Iowa. A couple guys keep your eye on as we're moving into the third round and into the future. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for sticking around. We really appreciate it. Like this video, subscribe to our channel. We're going to continue to put out content like these videos. If you guys enjoyed this, put it, comment down in the chat what you guys want to see next. We're always trying to figure out what is the best Dynasty content to put out there. We're always trying to figure out what you guys want to see. And so just go ahead and leave a comment. If you guys have any trade questions, I know the trade deadlines are looming around. We've had a couple in some of my own leagues. If you have any trades, throw those in the comments as well. I'll be happy to answer some of those. We've had some in previous videos. I love getting comments from you guys, so really appreciate it. So, I think that's all we got for you. So we'll see you on the next one.